Welcome back to the KSSR space program. Where we had left off last time, we had launched our first manned missions into space, and we picked up a couple of contracts for the next Voskhod mission, and this one's just going to be really just going into a slightly higher orbit, nothing especially crazy. And this one is a contract to rendezvous 2 vessels. So those might be kind of complementary. Let's take a look at our science goals real quick. Looks like the next thing we're probably going to be going for, that's actually an open question. Maybe landing? Maybe modular engineering? Get these robotics parts that we won't really use too much this playthrough. That's actually a really useful part right there. And of course, moving into solar panels really opens the door to a lot of stuff. But for right now, we are going to get started on our next set of missions here. We're going to launch up our Voskhod 3 mission, and this time, we're going to send up Bob, and we got to get Bob suited up. Perfect. Alright, Bob. Oh. Get in there. And do we have any other little modifications we want to make? Not at this moment. At the moment, we're honestly kind of burning money to get some of these contracts done. There's not going to be a lot of science return on these. But in any case, up we go. Okay, so we have our first mission up, and we've got, if you notice, we've got our objectives met for the contract. It was just to have both our apoapsis and periapsis above a certain altitude, so by circularizing at 300,000, roughly, we've met both of those goals. So what we're going to do now is we're going to launch our 4th Voskhod mission, and we're going to try and do this quickly, so that we can get on a similar trajectory, in not a whole lot of time. And we're going to try and do a rendezvous. So this will be Voskhod 4. And we're going to send up Bill. Suit up, Bill. You're going in. And the Voskhod capsule has a probe core built into it, or has an SAS built into it. There we go. So we can actually, have the SAS turned on even though Bill isn't a pilot. So we're going to use this opportunity to get all 4 of our Kerbonauts here some spaceflight experience and get them all up to level 1. Okay, now we have both of our Voskhod capsules in orbit. So I'm literally just going to do some time warping here and see what that does to our ascending and descending nodes. So all right, so just by warping a little bit, we're going to be able to get these trajectories pretty close together. So let me play around a little bit here and see what this does. Okay, that's not a bad start. So we can get to right around there where we're going to be pretty close together. And then we're going to make some minor adjustments to get set up for the intercept itself. Okay, so we've got our intercept to around like 11 to 12 kilometers separation, which isn't too bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fly around to the far side and see if I can make some minor adjustments and get that a little bit more optimized. We'll find out in a moment here. And I may actually, yeah, it's looking like I might need to do some minor adjustments here. Okay, that's not working out too well. Oh, that intercept over there is actually much closer. This might be a better one to be going for. Let me try this. Nope, not that. Oh, look at that. Less than a kilometer separation. That should fulfill our contract requirements for an intercept. Yup, and it did. And where is our... There we go. Hey, we're flying by. Let's see if we can slow down a bit. And just fly over in the general direction. Well, our separation is already a bit less. So let's do this. Alright, there we go. I'd like to get within... Yeah, look at that. There we are. We're in visual range. There's a good intercept. How you doing, buddy? We'll just sort of wave out the window on the way through. All good. Alright, so now we're switching back. That should be... Yes. Now we're switching back to Voskhod 3, which I'm hoping is going to let us complete this contract. But sometimes the contract configurator engine is a little wonky if when we switch vehicles like we have been. So that may or may not work out too well. We might not get credit for completing the contract when we land, but we'll find out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back around again and get ourselves set up for a clean re-entry. And we're going to repeat that with both of our capsules. And with Voskhod 4, since we don't actually have any like contract stuff to complete, we're going to do it the Soviet way, and we're going to bail out of our capsule and parachute down to the ground like the first few Voskhod pilots did in real life. But for this one, we're going to land normal. Perfect. Just what we wanted. Excellent. And it looks like we got the contract completion. Not bad. Good stuff. All right, now we're going to switch back and recover our Voskhod 4. And, you know, in real life, I think off the top of my head it was Vostok 5 and 6 did a two-vehicle rendezvous like this in you know, in Earth orbit as their actual mission. So there is some mild historical grounding in the contract we had there. Okay, so for this mission, as I mentioned, we're going to do the landing the actual Vostok way. We're going to bail out of the capsule and parachute down once we're in the atmosphere, because we've got our parachute for Bill. And I'm going to crake an insurance just in case I screw this up. I haven't done it this way in quite a long time. But it's good fun. Oh, there goes our service module. Alright, so we're going to wait until we're a bit lower, and then we're going to have Bill bail out. Oh no. Is it telling me I need my... It is. Oh, I don't have my astronaut complex upgraded. Oh, what a letdown. Oh, fail. Well, I am sorry to have been a tease. Looks like that'll be my next upgrade. Boonk. And we'll get a crew report even though we don't need it. So we successfully did our first rendezvous and got a couple of our Voskhod missions linked up in space. Doing some radio transmissions, practicing maneuvers. Now, we didn't get a whole lot of signs from that. We weren't expecting much. Because, again, those contracts weren't big science contracts. Now, the next one we've got... What is this here? This is to do an EVA up in space. And, transfer crew between vessels. We're not going to be doing that with Voskhod. So, get an EVA from space around Kerbin. That we can do with Voskhod 4, even though it's actually going to kind of be Voskhod 5. But ignore that, doesn't matter. Alright, so here we go. Now we're going to have Kerbals able to get out of the capsule. And so what we'll do now, I think... Yeah, I think to complete this contract, all we have to do is transmit the EVA report. So I think I can bail out on the way down with that contract. And we're also going to need to get a whole bunch more money to upgrade our research and development. That's going to be kind of important, but we'll worry about that in a minute. So we're going to send up Voskhod 5, and this one we are gonna do Jeb. And Jeb, are you okay? Yes, you are still correctly suited. Good man. All right, we're gonna send up Jeb. He'll be our first parachutist, and just to make sure, I'm gonna dump that and see. Is there any other? Do we have any other? No, we don't. My UI's all screwed up. That is really annoying. Alright, well, I guess we're going with just the parachute that he's got in there already. Because we're fighting the UI as always. But let's get Jebediah up there so we can get him back down. Okay, we've got our capsule into orbit, and we should be ready. We'll do a little Kraken insurance. We should be ready for the first spacewalk. Oh yeah, Jeb's all excited. And we are not going too far from the capsule. Oh, and we completed it just with that. Not bad. And let's go ahead. And we're going to transfer that crew report down right away, because we're not going to be landing with the capsule. At least we're going to try not to. We're going to go around to the far side of the planet again. And get our retro burn going. All right, we're getting ready for re-entry. And, you know, in real life, you know, the Vostok was kind of a flawed design. It had some issues, as you would expect, being, you know, the very first manned space system in the world. And that service module was connected to the capsule by a bunch of, like, cables and stuff that ran up the side. And at least once or twice, it didn't really separate very well, and was tangled with the capsule. And, you know, it was like chasing the capsule down during re-entry, flopping around and stuff, until the atmospheric friction burned through the cables and finally separated off the service module. So they had some issues with these early designs. Again, as you would expect. And you know, it's a good thing that that nobody got killed in the Vostok missions, because that was some risky stuff, man. I tell you. All right, so we're gonna get a bit further down here into the atmosphere, and then we're gonna bail. All right, Jeb said enough of this. EVA unavailable. Oh, come on. Really, you gonna do that to me again? Oh, why is it not letting me bail? was it because I was... There we go. Deploy shoot. Whee! Yeah, I think it's because I was time warped. All right, there goes our capsule. Good old Jeb having a grand old time. Now that would be something to try. I'm not going to do it right now, but it would be really fun to see if I could hand glide back and like grab the capsule and go back into the hatch. I'm sure it's got to be possible. Yep. Ragdoll it out. It's all good though. And can we? Maybe? Oh yeah, we can even go back in from the ground. How about that? Well, that works out pretty well. We're gonna hide in here to shelter ourselves from whatever weird wildlife is out here on Kerbin, and also it makes the recovery step a little easier with a few less clicks. So we'll go with that. We'll go with that. It's good stuff. Alright, so we still need to get some extra science, and the only contract we have right now is the transfer crew. So let's take a look and see what some of our other contracts are going to require here, and why we don't have them yet. Interesting. I might actually be missing a contract. I think I am. I think I am missing the Muna 1 contract. Well, that is a technical error on my part. You'll excuse me while I go remedy that. Okay, so I went in and I found that there were a couple of issues in my contract setup. They have been resolved. It turns out that I unfortunately had two contract packs installed that were kind of stepping on each other. So I resolved that, and our contracts are back. So we've got this one we had before to transfer a crew between vessels near Kerbin, which we're not going to do. And we have our Muna 1 contract, which is a contract literally just to fly by the moon and return some science. So that is what we're going to try and do. Now we've got a whole bunch of like probes and science experiments and stuff here that should provide a relatively good opportunity to make ourselves a little flyby mission. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our most basic sort of a probe here. We're going to call this Muna 1. And we are going to set up... Oop. There we go. A very basic science setup. We're going to have a little magnetometer up there. Going to set ourselves up with this guy. And we're going to build the rest of this mission. I'm going to fast forward through it. But I'm going to build the rest of this mission with some simple communications, electricity, and science. Alright, so we've optimized this to be a low-cost, cheap and simple mission. Literally just to fly by the moon and return some science. And it occurs to me we're going to have to wait a little bit before we launch. And that's totally okay. And as I frequently do with some of these early missions, we have gone overboard with the electrical systems. Because I like to not run out of battery power when I'm running some of these early missions that don't have solar panels or fuel cells or anything like that. So, alright. Here we go. Okay, so we have our first probe en route to the moon, and literally all this is going to do is do a flyby and transmit some science back while we're on this, like, intercept trajectory through the moon's gravitational influence. And as you saw from the booster, we didn't have a whole lot of Delta V to spare. You know, we launched this first mission, didn't have to go into orbit, didn't have to do any maneuvers. Nothing fancy, so we kept this one as simple as we possibly could. And again, based it off of some of the real-life Luna probes. Alright, so now we are on a flyby trajectory, and now we just gotta transmit some science. And we're going to get some great rewards from this. Both the science that we're actually returning and the rewards for contract completion. Oh, and that's taking a lot of electricity. Okay, yeah, look at that. So not only did we get all this stuff from the milestones, we got some huge rewards from completing those contracts. So that's always good. And we're going to send back our temperature reading, and we're going to send back our barometric pressure. Not that we're expecting those to be anything significant compared to the magnetometer scan, but that's fine. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the first episode, when I'm doing this total conversion for like a single player playthrough just for fun, I would be launching that mission like repeatedly to do a whole bunch of repeated science gains. But for this playthrough, you know, I've streamlined things a little bit. Alright, so we are going to take this opportunity and get ourselves some basic solar power, some integrated electronics, and also... yeah, that'll be a good time. We'll grab modular engineering. And next is going to be landing. That'll be important for some of these other techs. But we do need that. But first, let's see... oh, look at all this. All this stuff opened up. Okay. So, we have science data from space around Kerbin. Let's grab that. Science from space around the moon. We'll grab that. Science from the surface of the moon. Not yet, but soon. Still the same thing there. Bring Moonstone. Not so much. This one to fly by Minmus. And Muna 2. Alright, so this, we want to get a probe into orbit around the moon. Well, we got some new technology that makes that possible. And Muna 3, we want to have a probe to impact the moon. Alright, well, that's another good one. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to send an impactor probe and clear out that Muna 3 contract before anything else. Okay, so based on what we're seeing here, this should be a collision course with the moon. So we're going to find out. We're going to time warp a bit, and I'm going to wait until I get to within the moon's sphere of influence before I ditch that trans stage, or the second stage, because I want to make sure that our trajectory is actually going to take us for an impact with the surface. Because we've got to complete that Muna 3 and get this thing destroyed. Okay, perfect. Look at that. We're going right down. So just to make extra sure, we're gonna sweeten the deal. Look at that. We're going to do it this way so that we're coming down on the light side. Excellent. And you know, just for giggles, I'm going to wait until we get in a space low, and I'm going to see if we have time to transmit that magnetometer scan before we impact the surface. And where we're on a collision course, it's not going to let me do a lot of warp to point stuff, so we have to be a little careful and do some of this manually. Oh, there we go. Oh. All right, yeah, the time warp got a little crazy there, but we have successfully crashed a probe. We have successfully crashed a probe into the moon. That was our objective. Okay, so now we're going to want to build a probe that can enter orbit around the moon. And hopefully also return some science and all that good stuff. Now, before that, let's check real quick to see if we have any extra new contracts. All right, we got a bunch of space station stuff, but nothing we're going to be doing just yet, eventually, but not right this second. So we have enough now to easily upgrade our R&D. So we can pick up landing, which we're going to need as a prerequisite for some of this other stuff. And now we can start thinking about some of these other technologies that we want to start researching towards. So those will be important going forward. For right now, I'm going to build a probe that's going to go up and enter orbit around the moon. Alright, so we've got ourselves a nice little probe here on our way to orbit around the moon. And again, for history aficionados, this probe might look slightly familiar, ignoring the little trans stage that we're going to be using for the retro burn once we get up into orbit around the moon. Come on. Now this also has some charged particle experiments built into it, so that'll be a good thing. Let's get ourselves burning retro here, and we should have an absolutely ridiculous amount of delta V in this probe. Alright, so now all we gotta do is transmit some science. And in case you're curious about like why I designed this kind of the way I did, you can see there this bottom part is a fuel tank, and it doesn't have a normal engine, but it has one built-in RCS thruster. I gave it a couple of more just so it has a slightly better thrust-to-weight ratio if I needed to like maneuver this thing around, and also so I can maintain a little bit of control that way. Alright, so first thing we're going to do just to complete the contract, we're going to transmit our temperature science. Alright, we got a bunch of milestones and all that. So now, this part probe actually has an experiment built in. It's got a charged particle scanner. Doesn't get us a whole lot of science, but we're going to go ahead and do that. In reality, this probe, I think this was, Luna 3? Is what this part is sort of modeled after, took the first photographs of the far side of the moon. So that's kind of a big deal. And we've already got that. So I think that's about all we're getting out of this one. So overall, that was a relatively good science mission. And I'm guessing we're probably going to get a whole bunch of money too. Oh yeah, look at that, look at that. We got all kinds of good money. Alright, so we got 80 science. It's not quite enough to get going on any of this, but we're making progress. So now we've got all kinds of extra stuff here. We've got contracts to go out to Duna, Minmus, this one to, where is it? Yeah. We're going to be collecting science from the surface of the moon and returning it back. This is going to be a long-term one that we're not going to be doing right away, but we'll get there. This one, just for some science from the surface of the moon, again, we'll get there. But for right now, we're going to be doing this one to go to Minmus. It's the same thing. We're going to be just doing a probe very similar to what we did for the moon. Just going to Minmus. And seeing what we can get. And I am going to actually reuse this Muna 2 design as Mina 1. Because it ended up being a relatively good, versatile design. We have a ridiculous amount of delta V in this thing. But I'm going to make one small minor change. These integrated solar panels weren't actually being as effective as I had hoped. So I'm going to just do some of this. There we go. Can't even tell the difference. Alright, and we'll send Mina 1 up on its way to Minmus. Now this one's going to be a little bit more tricky of an intercept, because Minmus, of course, is on an inclined orbit. So we're probably going to have to wait until we get a good launch window. Yeah, we're going to have to wait a little while till we get a good launch window, but that's fine. Alright, this should work. So we are going to get going on our way to Minmus. Okay, that actually worked out very conveniently. So we're going to get our little probe here going on its way to Minmus. We're going to retain that little train stage, even though it turned out to not be strictly necessary. We're going to retain that just in case we have to make any weird adjustments out here if we lose our we lose our intercept for some weird reason. Let's get a little closer. And yet, with these solar panels, we're doing great on electricity. Okay, we are in Minmus's sphere of influence. So let's go ahead and do our charged particle transmission, our temperature, and our pressure data. Now, because we have a whole lot of delta V and everything on this, I'm going to set ourselves to drop down into a bit of a flyby. Okay, we are now in space low around Minmus, so we're going to take this opportunity to get some science from the new situation here that we find ourselves in. And we actually, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves in the contract series. You know, the next contract is going to be, I believe, to get a probe in orbit around Minmus, and since we've already done that, you know, it's going to be fairly trivial. But for the next probe, let's get all this out of the way. For the next probe, we're going to do something a little bit more Kerbal and a little bit less KSSR. We're going to send a probe on a two-way trip to go up, get some science, and then return back. So here we gotta get something into orbit around Minmus and get it back to Kerbin. And just transmit some science. That's all good. Science data from space around Minmus. That's also good. So, this is where things... Oh, we got a bunch of science from that. That's right. Let me just take a quick look. Okay, yeah, this is going to be an important one moving forward, but not for right this second. This is also going to be tremendously important. We get a lot of stuff here that we want, and this might actually be the one that I go with. This is also going to be important. Preview of things to come. Modular structures. This is more like construction parts. Some of these are actually pretty important. Thermodynamics, again, like larger re-entry and fairing stuff. Specialized boosters, this is some more rocketry, and heavy lifting, this is some more rocketry. So for right now, we're going to go with the electrical engineering. This is going to get us a whole bunch of communication stuff, a prototype RTG, and a whole bunch of science experiments, which right now is what we desperately need. So we are going to make ourselves a little probe to go up and get some science from Minmus and then return it back to Kerbin. Alright, so what we've done here is we've slightly expanded our basic R7 booster design. We've added an upper stage, which is something that we'll be getting some generous use out of later on. And we've also given ourselves a little bit of room up here for like a return stage. And we've got some deployable solar panels, a whole bunch of science experiments. Most of these, a couple of these are new, like the visible light camera. This is just another magnetometer. A couple of these, like the thermometer, they're the exact same experiments as the ones out of the stock parts. Let me get back into that. As the ones out of the stock parts, but it's just a different part model. And of course, our return capsule. So we're going to try and gather all this science up and return it back to Kerbin. And that should net us an absolutely ridiculous amount of science. So let's go ahead and send this mission up on its way. Alright, so we have got this ridiculous thing on an intercept course for Minmus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Oh, that's right, I can't do that because that's a sensor that goes on the ground. I was an idiot for taking that with me, but that's fine. I am going to go through and get a round of these science experiments, even though I don't really necessarily need them. Only one of them, the cosmic ray detector, was new at all. We'll get some visible light photography from space, and we can actually transmit that one. Oh, that's right, I don't have an antenna. Oh, that's going to become a problem. Oh, no. Oh, no. Uh-oh. All right. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. Worst case scenario, this mission ends in failure, as sometimes Soviet rocketry does. Okay, it looks like I can still do some of this without control of the capsule. So that's fine, because all I need to do at this stage is literally just collect all of this science. And once we get all of this collected, we can get it back into this guy. And then once we get back into communications range, yeah, see, because the probe cores will have some like minor built-in communications capability. So once we get back into communications range, we can fix this and go in for a landing trajectory and all that. Uh-oh. 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 Oh, no, 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 no. Uh-oh. Oh, this isn't good at all. Oh, we're screwed. We're screwed. Uh-oh. Alright. I do believe we're going to be screwed, because this, as we saw before, this part is not going to be able to survive impact down on the desert. Oh, no. I mean, we've got all that precious science in here, but it's my own impatience with the time warping that screwed me. We may have to launch this one again. Yeah, that's not looking good. I think I'm just going to load the Kraken insurance. So forgive me for that. It's just, it was my own incompetence, being a little bit too impatient with the fast forwarding. So we're going to do this real quickly one more time. All right, so this time we actually got ourselves into an interesting situation. We're on a trajectory that's going to take us through the moon. So we might be able to get a bunch of the science from the moon as well, because I think we have a contract to return some science from space around the moon. So we'll have an opportunity to do that on our way by. And the moon's actually gonna, it looks like, give us a gravity assist into space around Minmus. So that's not bad. Alright, we're in space around Minmus, so now we're going to grab all of our science. Trying to do all this quickly here. And this'll be round 2 of trying to return back to Kerbin. Alright, we've got a whole bunch of science stored in there, so this is gonna give us an absolutely ridiculous amount of science, presuming we can land this thing. Couple hundred at least, probably. So what I'm gonna do now, I am going to, all right, it looks like, yeah, we've got a bit of a mess there. I'm gonna hit F5 for Kraken insurance in case I have to redo this, and I'm gonna try and time warp us down to about here, where hopefully we'll be able to use what's left of our Delta V to correct us for a safe re-entry for our capsule. So stand by. All right, we ended up having more than enough, so what I'm going to do here is try and get us set up for a re-entry down over the water. All right, that's a little steep, but it'll probably do it, and just to be sure, we're going to adjust this trajectory a little bit. All right. That should be a good re-entry over water. So we're going to save just in case it's not. And get moseying. Are you kidding me? Oh, we decelerated way too quick. Oh boy. This mission is cursed. Cursed. We'll make a minor adjustment here. All right, we'll try that. Okay, this looks probably better. Okay. So that one worked. Like fifth try was a charm or whatever there. And, as happens sometimes with the KSSR space program, we should look at those. We had some failures, in that mission, but that's okay. We corrected through trial and error. We got a whole boatload of money and a whole boatload of science, which is going to come really in handy making some of these other science decisions we're going to have in a few minutes. So this episode has been very productive. We got a whole bunch of stuff done by sending a bunch of probes to the Mun and Minmus. So make sure to check out the next episode to see what is next for the KSSR space program.